First up, I'm going to start off with my brown paper there, and you can use white paper if you have it, or I always mention in my videos that the brown paper is just recycled paper from the grocery store, so it's actually free. And so yeah, I use the brown paper just because, especially if we're going to do something for winter, the white shows up really well. And I'm going to start off with the background first. So I have a few different greens, and I know everybody's set is different. So this is comparable to a hooker's green. It's a deep green here. And then I also have a brighter green with some yellow mixed in. So if you have a yellow green, and then we're going to use some olive as well. For blending tools, you can use, sometimes the sets come with like a clear little stick. You can use that, or you can use a paper stump. The clear one there is in my hand. Sometimes I like these, sometimes I don't. The paper stump, of course, most people are familiar with that, or you can just use your finger or a Q-tip, so you have lots of options there. And I also have this little pink, it's like a little pink piece that you can put on your finger. It is made of some rubber silicone, and I actually found that at the dollar store. So if you live in the United States and you have a dollar store, those come in really, really handy. And I think it was 2 that came in this set. But I'm going to mix in my 2 different greens here. And then when you're done laying on your color here for the background, you can go in with one of the tools that I mentioned. I also have some pale yellow here that I'm just blending in. And that is the pink piece that I was talking about that you just put on your finger. Always remember to clean it first. And then you can just blend away. So I am going back and forth here and spreading it up a bit so it can fade out those edges and there's nothing too harsh. Because again, this is just some like background filler areas, and then we're going to place all of our trees on top of here. So you're just going to take your time and blend everything out. And then we're going to put the snow on the bottom. And always make sure to clean your white. I know mine was pretty dirty from last time. All you need is a little scrap sheet of paper and you can clean it off on there. Or if you have maybe an old rag or something, you can definitely like wipe off the top pretty good there, and you should be good to go. But you definitely want to clean that first, because if you didn't and you just put it down, you would smear all those other colors in your white, and then you definitely don't want that with the snow. Once your white is all clean, I'm going to go ahead and make a light line here for the snow underneath the green background that we created. And I'm going to put one, they almost look like little hills just to show the lumps in the snow. One is a bit lower than the other. And then I'm going to go ahead here and continue to go back and forth, and we're going to get a light layer here of all the white. And then you can use your blender to blend everything together and get rid of any little bits that you may have. And then later on, we will be adding some blue in here for the shadows as well. Once you've completed all of your blending here, then we're going to move on to the next part, which is the trees, and pick out all the browns and some deeper greens. Next up here, we're going to get started with the trees, and I am going to keep it simple. I'm going to use some burnt umber and then burnt sienna later for the highlights on the trees. So just those two browns. And I'm going to start off with the burnt umber first. I'm going to put the largest tree in front here. That's going to be the focal point. I'm going to put a small little dot on the bottom and then one on the top, and then you're just going to connect them. So nice and easy here. Right up, and then we're going to make another line, and we're going to make it thicker on the bottom and a bit thinner as it goes up and fades out. And then you can start to draw on some of your branches. And then we have some shorter little stubby branches that are a bit broken off towards the bottom area. And we're going to start to fill in everything with our first layer here. After filling in the main trunk of the tree there, now we're going to start to add those little tiny branches that I mentioned. And you can make them a few different sizes so they look a little bit more natural. And then work your way up to the top, and we're going to add some up top as well that are going to be a bit larger. For the greens, I have my olive and a viridian. And then I'm going to start to place where there's the little bushy parts of the trees and the branches. A little bit here and there. I'm not going to add too much because this is a winter tree. So it's okay if it looks a little bare because it's supposed to. And then we still have to remember that we're going to add the snow on top last. So I'm just going to go back and forth here between my two different greens. When you're first getting your layers down here, just think of them as abstract shapes until we get that formation of the tree up top here. So just back and forth between your two different greens, again, building that formation. On the sides here, I'm just going to make very light lines with my brown, my burnt umber here, because I want these to be faded off into the distance. So we're not going to put nearly as much detail on these. And then my other one that's a bit taller here on the side is going to be, I would say, about a medium level. We're going to put a little bit more detail on this one. So I am going to darken it up a bit and then just put a little branch off here on the side. But it's not going to be as detailed as the one in the middle because that's the focal point. After I get my branches all done and the little ones on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everything is blended, especially if you can see a tiny bit of the paper showing through, just so everything has a nice smooth layer. Also, don't forget to blend your little trees on the side here so they fade out nicely into the background. When you're done with the placement of your trees, then you can go ahead and use your burnt sienna to just add some highlights here and there on the bottom and some of the branches for a little bit more contrast here. So I'm going up and down and then rocking it side to side too a little bit here. And then I'm going to place a little bit on these trees that we're going to fade out into the background as well. Just blending it with your finger or your blender. And then you can get off any of those little tiny pieces if you have any. And when you're done blending your side trees here, we're going to go back and blend through some of the greens and make sure again that you can't see any of the paper showing through, just so everything looks nice and even. For the tree that is over on the left, I'm going to go ahead and use some of the same greens that we used on our focal point tree, just a little bit on the top, not as much as the big one in the center. It's just a little bit here, and I'm going to put the deeper green underneath for the shadow areas, and then some of that olive green on top, and then just blending on through. Next up, you can grab your white and make sure that it's clean, and we're just going to add some of the thick snow here. But yeah, we're just going to place a little bit on the tops of some of these branches here, a little bit on the bottom, mixing it down and throughout, and then don't forget about those little ones that we're going to fade out there as well. Moving on to the next step here, after you finish all of your blending and brightening up that white, we're going to go ahead with the shadows and some of the scraping techniques up next. For the last section here, I'm going to use my blue. This is just a sky blue, and I'm going to place a little bit under the trees here just for some shadow areas, and then also in the snow as well, just to give it a little bit more dimension and break it up. And then I'm going to go ahead and blend it through. Moving on to our scraping technique, I am going to use my compass here. And if you don't have one, they sell these at the dollar store. They're very inexpensive. You can also use a palette knife as well, or the end of your brush, depending on how pointy it is. But I'm just going to make some lines here for the texture on the tree bark and up here on the branches. Great for details, a little bit here in the greenery. And that is it for today's tutorial. Be sure to check out all of my other classes. I have lots more other oil pastel videos. And I'll see you next time.